Productivity. Gladiator.
I'm Brian Nelson Palmer, and on this show, I share personal, practical productivity skills. And in this episode, it's a debate. I want to pull you into a disagreement I've been having with Eric Girard. We disagree about 5 productivity hacks, and we decided to record that disagreement, and each of us making the case for our side and bring it to you because we wanted to see what you thought. See, I first met Eric a while back. We did an episode called 10 Time Management Hacks for New Managers. And I disagreed with him then. And I'm glad life has come back around so that I can share that disagreement with you now. So whose side do you want? Am I right? Is he right? Let me know what you think.
Hello, my name is Eric Girard, and I'm the CEO of Girard Training Solutions. My focus is all about helping new managers transform from being great individual contributors to outstanding people managers. And with me today is Brian Nelson Palmer. Brian, who are you?
Thank you so much, Eric. And I'm Brian Nelson Palmer. I am the founder of Productivity Gladiator. And similar to you, I teach personal, practical productivity skills. And my target audience is recently promoted office people managers. So if you're managing a team, how do we get you more productive to get all of the things done and not be overwhelmed? And so I've been doing this for years and years. I've got a whole training school and session and curriculum that we follow. And I'm so passionate about this thing. And today, the whole reason for that is because today, Eric, what are we doing, man? Let's debate.
We are going to have a slap down. So the whole idea, we are going to have a productivity slap down. If you listen to me for any length of time at all, you know that I am passionate about productivity. In addition to making new managers successful, I also think that new managers and everybody ought to be productive and effective and efficient. So I have strong opinions about certain things like calendaring and so on. Brian also has strong opinions. And so we are going to surface those strong opinions in a duel, and we will have this conversation, and we will see what you think in the comments and in the forums that we post these sessions in.
Absolutely. Want to hear your thoughts because Eric and I straight up disagree. Like we were talking the other day, and it's like, you know what? I totally disagree with you, dude. No, it shouldn't be that way. It should be this way. And we found 5 topics that are exactly things that we are on opposite ends of the spectrum. So now we want to get you in on this. What do you think? And I'm going to share my side. He's going to share his side. So let's debate these things. So Eric, what do we got, man? What's first?
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't you run down the list of topics and then we will cruise through from top to bottom.
That's very organized. All right. 5 things we're going to talk about. First, do you put your tasks on your calendar or do you put it somewhere else, like on a to-do list? We've got different thoughts. Second, do you plan out every hour of the day or do you leave open space in your calendar? Is it all about planning more of the day? Third, are you an early riser and an early gym person or a late riser, a later gym person? Fourth one, meditation. Do you meditate? Do you not meditate? Is it good? Is it not good? Eric and I disagree. And the last one, the 5th one, let's talk about Amazon Subscribe and Save because subscriptions and getting your stuff delivered automatically. I think one thing, he thinks another. So game on. Let's talk about those.
All right, game on. What's our first prompt again, please, sir?
You put your tasks on a calendar or do you put everything on the calendar? So, Eric, I know you're a calendar guy, and I totally disagree. I do not think you put tasks on a calendar. So talk about that.
I am absolutely a calendar guy. My motto is if it's on the calendar, it gets done. And so if you were to look at my calendar today, actually today is Friday, so it's a pretty light day. But for example, looking at any other day this week, you will see a reminder to get into social media, to meditate, to go to a class and teach a class, to call a friend for his birthday, to study for an event that's coming up. So it's all in my calendar. My calendar is my task list. That doesn't mean that it's incredibly rigid, though. So, in case you think that my life is like a military marching band, it's not like that. There's definitely room for things to move. And
No offense to the military marching band guys out there, but yes.
well, I'm just saying, I was reaching, I was grasping.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But I'm just trying to think of something that was really, really strictly organized. And military marching bands are very strictly organized. So anyway, if something's got to move, something can move. But otherwise, at the end of the day, I'm done with that task list. I've accomplished everything there. And that means that at the end of the day, at 5 o'clock, I can switch gears, go upstairs to my family and hang out and not worry about work. Brian, what do you think?
Nice. I totally disagree. Eric, I think you do not put your tasks on your calendar. Here's what I think.
I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong. I already think you're wrong. You haven't even started speaking, and I'm telling you, you're wrong.
I think your tasks go on a to-do list, and your calendar is for where you need to be. So I teach the calendar is where you put the places you need to be, like physically, virtually. Your presence is required at this location. Could be virtual, could be this team meeting or whatever it is. Where you need to be is your calendar, and what you need to do is your to-do list. And here's why I think that. Because like I started out as a calendar guy like you, and I know where it came from. If you think back, I don't know for you, Eric, for me, elementary school, I had a day planner. And so they give you that little agenda day planner thing when you're in elementary school, and you write down your tasks and your to-dos and your assignments, and it's a little calendar thing. But then there's never really a course that talks about what happens when things get more, bigger. There's not really a process for that. So when I started my work career, I was still in that mode. And there's 3 issues with that. First one, what happens if there's not a date for the item that you have to do? So Eric, I'm going to ask you these 3 questions because I have 3 issues with putting tasks on a calendar. So the first one is, first issue, what happens if there's not a date for the item? For me, in the to-do list, I have a someday maybe or a waiting follow-up list where if I have to come back to it, it goes to waiting follow-up. If it's something that I don't want to lose track of, but there's not a date associated with when it comes back. Someday, maybe I'll get back to it. Then it goes on that list. So I have my 3 to-do lists, and I'm either doing it or waiting to do it or someday maybe. And so that's what works. But for you, if you're putting it on a calendar, what happens if there's not a date or a time for that thing?
There is always a date. There's always a day and a time for a thing to get done. Okay. Everything has its place. And so, for example, there's a note here where I need to update my referral partners in my CRM. That's not an urgent task, but it's on the calendar to take care of, and it's going to get done. Whereas if I had it on a to-do list to do someday would never come for me. It would just never come. I'm ADD enough that it just wouldn't happen. And so having it on the calendar is like, oh, I need to do this thing. I get it done. It's checked off the list, and I move on.
But Eric, how big is that? There's got to be a huge thing. I don't know about you. For me, I've got a whole bunch of things that are someday maybe kind of things that are just, I don't need to get to them right now, but at some point it's going to be important or I'm going to come back to it. So my actual to-do list that I could do right now is reasonable size. My waiting follow-up list on things I have to come back to that I can't do right now is a pretty significant list, but I can't touch it right now. So it's fine. And my someday maybe list is also pretty reasonable size. So like, I don't know that it seems to me like you would have just a whole bunch of stuff on your calendar that's a big maybe.
You know, I think what's happening here is we're coming at this from 2 completely different paradigms. All right. So, you know, my paradigm is a place for everything and everything in its place, including tasks. So I've become a master at guessing how long something will take. So for example, this whole idea where I'm going to update the referral partners on my CRM, that's going to take me half an hour. It's only half an hour. So I walk through life going, how long will this thing really take me? Is it really going to take me a whole lot of time? Or for example, distilling water for my CPAP. How long is that actually going to take? It's going to take me 3 minutes to set up the distiller. It's no big deal. I can take care of it at any time and it gets done. Because often I build these things up in my head of, oh, geez, I have to do this and then I have to do that and blah, 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 blah. When I actually map it onto a calendar, it's like, oh, this is only going to take me 15 minutes. I can knock that out any time. And if it's a someday maybe thing, it just goes later in the month. It gets handled later on after the more urgent things get handled closer in.
Got it. So, but then Eric, you're going to be moving these things around all the time. Like if updating your CRM is something you need to do, but then another task comes in that is more important or more urgent than that, then you're going to have to move. You're like constantly moving things around. Do you have tasks that just go from day to day? You've punted them and then punted them again and punted them again because other stuff comes up?
No, actually, that doesn't happen. And the system has flexibility in it. So if something's got to move, it moves. It's not like it's locked in stone.
Right.
But, if it's on the calendar, it gets done and other things get moved in around it. And then if there is a time sensitive thing or an important meeting, then I move the someday maybe thing. I just move it out of the way and make room.
Yeah.
And so people will often come to me and I use Calendly to set up meetings because I'm an external, right? So I'll give people my Calendly link and I usually send out my 25-minute link, something I learned from you. So I do the 25-minute link. I send it out. Folks say, hey, you're not available until May. Could we do something about that? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Let me move something out of the way and I'll make room for you. So there's flexibility, as well.
Right.
If I don't like the person, then no, I'm sorry. You got to wait till May.
Yeah. It's like your own door guy. It's like, oh no, there's no time on my calendar. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So then hold on. So that's issue number one, was that what happens if there's not a date for that item? And I have things in my world that don't necessarily have a date or a time that they have to be done. And so I'm able to constantly be reprioritizing, but it just happens all on the list and I don't have to move things around. So that's issue number one for me. But issue number two is it doesn't scale. And here's what I mean by that. I used to put tasks on my to-do list, and I've seen some people, you listening might be this person who puts a list of tasks at the top of your day. So you've got one day item that has all of the things you're trying to do that day or something. And I tried that for a little while too. And the problem was that doesn't scale, meaning if I get more and more to-do lists, more things on my to-do list, or that list gets pretty long, then it starts to cover up the rest of your calendar. And so there's actually it happened to me where I missed a morning meeting. I had like an 8:30 meeting with my boss's boss way back in the beginning of my career. And I missed that meeting because my to-do list was so long that it had covered up the 8:30 time slot on my calendar. And I totally missed that meeting and I got in trouble for it. And I realized, I can't like this whole putting tasks on the calendar isn't going to work because the calendar needs to be where I need to be, like meeting with my boss. So I had to get those things off of there. So I don't know. What do you think about that? Because the scaling thing is it doesn't scale. There's only what happens when the list gets too long?
I haven't had issues with it. At this point in my career, I'm a CEO. I run my own business. I actually run 3 businesses. And the color coding system I've got for the different calendars and the ability to guess how long something's going to take. So, rather than saying that a thing is going to take me 2 hours, it's like, no, that'll take me 15 minutes. It seems to work out okay. I haven't had an issue.
Yeah.
But again, I think it might be a paradigm thing. It might be, where, what qualifies as a to-do item on your list may not qualify for mine.
Right. That seems like a whole nother. Well, I'm going to leave that alone because we can debate that too. But so here was my third one that I wanted to ask you about, Eric. This is lose track of things. So what happens is there was one day, and I lost track of a few tasks and got in trouble at work for them. And what happened is I had them on my calendar for a certain date, and then I was unexpectedly sick and I did not get on. It was like a Thursday, and I ended up being unexpectedly sick on the Friday. And when I came in on Monday, the day started off immediately, and I did not have the chance to go back and move the things from Friday that were left over onto Monday. So now my day was overloaded. I missed those items and I ended up losing track of a couple of things that my supervisor was counting on me for. So I ended up missing those items because I didn't move them. And so for me, that was sort of the nail in the coffin for me I'm going to become a to-do list guy, because if it's on the to-do list, I never have to move it. It's there. It's always there. The only thing I have to do is know what order I need to do all these things in and start at the top and work your way down. But what about losing track of things?
I don't lose track of things because I'm constantly in my calendar. So, I'm constantly checking up to make sure that I haven't missed anything, that something hasn't gotten past me. And then at the end of the day and the end of the week, I go through and look ahead in my calendar. And if I was out or something happened during the previous day, I'll look back and say, oh, okay, that thing that I was supposed to do Thursday, I didn't get to it, so I'll move it over to Monday morning and I'll take care of it then. So it's just drag, drop, put it where it belongs, and we're all back. So I very rarely drop things because, my calendar is my Bible. And so I'm in it all the time. And sometimes, during downtime with the family, we're sitting on the couch hanging out. I'm in my calendar, just double checking, making sure that I know what's happening for the week coming up. And that sets me at ease. So 5 or 10 minutes on the couch with the family, they're reading, I've been scrolling the New York Times or something. I take a few minutes, check the calendar, make sure everything's up to date, and then I can put the phone down and hang out with my family and relax.
Yeah. So I know that you and I could probably continue to debate this. So we shouldn't debate this for too long. We want to hear what you listening and watching are thinking about this. But what I can say is that we are on totally separate sides of the fence here, because I think it seems like everything goes in the calendar. And I do agree that if there is time on the calendar, if you set aside time, it will get done. So I totally agree with you there. However, for me, calendar is where you need to be. Task is where you need to do what you need to do. And it's a totally separate thing. So this is just a fascinating discussion, because ultimately it's all about getting stuff done. But man, two very separate systems.
Absolutely. And I will say, pounding on the table, I will say, you're wrong. You're wrong.
I totally disagree, Eric. No, man, it doesn't scale. I have problems with it, but
you're allowed. It's okay. This is
here's the beauty of the world in our country today is that you don't have to agree.
Yeah, this is not an autocracy. This space is a democracy, and you're allowed to dissent. It's okay.
Right. So I would never vote for his system. He wouldn't vote for my system, and we still both get stuff done. So it's an amazing thing.
Yes. Moving on. Item number 2.
Do you plan out every hour of the day, or do you leave open space? In the last discussion, Eric, you talked about, it sounds like you have a lot of your day planned. You said it's flexible and there's still a little time, but like you said, the first time available is May in your Calendly link. So okay, so I don't plan out every hour of every day, and we're on different sides of the fence. So you go first. What's this about? So being so planned. Talked about that.
Yeah, so I literally block out time for lunch and dinner so that people can't book meetings when I need to eat. I've got a stomach clock that goes off at noon and 6, and if you haven't fed me by then, there's going to be a problem. So there is lunchtime, there is dinner time, and then otherwise I book time for everything. So meetings where I need to be, people I need to meet, and things I need to get done all wind up in the calendar. And there is white space, and there is time to get up and walk around and do things. But at the end of the day, here's when my method pays off. At the end of the day, my time is mine. So I block off dinner at 6 p.m. so nobody blocks me when I want to be with my family. And then after 6 p.m., like for example, there's a calendar item here to call my friend Dan. So that's personal stuff. So sometimes if I want to make sure I remember to call somebody or do something personally, it also winds up in the calendar, but that's my time. So it gets done, and there's plenty of time to just chill out with the fam and read or watch TV or go for a walk or whatever.
So Eric, you're looking at let's put some perspective on this. You're looking at the screen right now. How much, if you were to add up the amount of white space on your calendar right now for the day, what for your awake hours, basically, what are we talking about? How much is there
for today?
Yeah.
Today's Friday. Fridays are no meeting days for me. Okay.
So this is pretty light. Let's go to like a Monday through Thursday, like a normal sort of work kind of day. What are we talking about?
Okay. Look at something that's fairly typical. Okay. So looking at Monday the 23rd, there's an hour and a half, there's a half hour, there's 15 minutes. And then at 3 o'clock, I'm going to work out. That's me time. Then I come back and there's room for work, and then there's dinner, and then there's nothing. So there's still plenty of time to do stuff and to be relaxed and unstructured.
Got it. So most of the rest of the day is you kind of know what you're doing next and next and next, going for most of the day. And there's a little bit of white space in there to flex. Yeah. Maybe it sounds like a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours of wiggle.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. If I was working in corporate, this may not work so well. I used to do this in corporate as well, and I used to get flack from my manager because I would block off time to work on projects. Like my boss would assign me a project, and I would say, okay, that project is due in 2 weeks. I better block off 2 hours a day to get it done.
Yeah.
I would block off the 2 hours a day. I would have my time set aside so I could get it done.
Yeah.
And then my boss would say, I need you in a meeting at that time. So then my boss would sabotage my system. So that didn't work all the time in corporate. But remember, I'm my own boss. My bosses now are my clients, and I can accommodate and make room for client meetings. It's no problem.
Yeah. See, for me, I'm on the other end of the spectrum here, Eric, which is if I don't have, it's where I need to be, right? So there is lots of time during my day where there's nowhere I need to be. And you're right, some days are busier than others. And I do have like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are generally meeting days, and there's a lot going on and it's back to back. And so there are days where from the morning through the evening, there's probably not a lot of white space because there's a lot of places I need to be. But for the most part in my calendar, there is a lot of white space, and the white space is still productive time. That's where our difference, I have mine on the to-do list. So if it's not a meeting time, then I am working on these things, and here's what I'm working on next. But there is, if I am able to physically, if my presence needs to be there, then I can do those things. And so that's, for me, that's where I believe that the calendar should only be where you need to be so that you can, where your brain needs to be, where your presence needs to be. And I think that there should be plenty of time where there's not anything on the calendar for that reason. So for me personally, I totally disagree, Eric. I think there should be lots of white space because that's when you get to function and you get to flow and you get to be you and do your thing. So I don't know. I struggle with that one. I think we're on a different page here.
Yeah, this is very much related to the first thing we talked about. So I don't think we're going to solve this, but I would be interested to hear what our listeners think about this whole idea of to calendar or not to calendar.
Yes.
So please weigh in in the comments. Let us know what you think.
Yes.
Is Brian crazy or am I crazy?
I really want to know because I feel like I think Eric's crazy. Eric thinks I'm crazy. So what do you think? That's fun. Let's see. Let's see what we got.
Well, at least we've got the same haircut. There is that.
Your taste in barbers is on point, Eric. I like it. And if you're listening, we're both bald. So, there's that. We got that in common, right? We do have a lot of things in common, but on these topics that we disagree on, let's go to the third one, Eric, because the third one is early riser, early to the gym, early workout, or late riser, later gym. Talk about that because I think you're an early and I'm a late person. So what do you got?
Okay, I'm a hybrid. So
Okay.
I'm an early riser. So on a typical morning, I'm up at 5:30. I take my time in the morning. I make myself breakfast. I meditate, which we'll get to. And then I come in and I go and do outreach and networking and all the building the business stuff. So that's the first thing that's blocked out of my calendar is 2 hours.
Wait. What time did you say? You start at 5:30? You said?
I'm up at 5:30 at my desk at 7.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got it. And before, that means you did the workout and the meditation and stuff before too?
No. So I get up and meditate. According to the calendar, Brian, I meditate at 6:45.
Yes. Tell us the breakdown, Eric. What do you got?
Yes. At 6:45, I meditate. And then I come and get the outreach and the networking done. And then the rest of the day is tasks and what have you. And then because I'm up so early and because my energy naturally drops off in the afternoon, at 3:00, I carve out 2 hours to go to the gym and work out. And then recharged, I either come back and do something personal or I may duck back into the office for another hour and do a little bit more work.
Yeah.
All right, bring it. Come on, let's go.
I was going to say, for me, I am not an early person, meaning I like to get up later. So point of reference, I'm a group fitness instructor. I teach an 8 a.m. class. 8 a.m. is the earliest that I want to be working out. And I wake up just in enough time to get to the gym to teach the 8 a.m. class. That's my sort of my way of doing it. And if it were up to me, my work schedule doesn't allow it right now, but my sweet spot, I love the middle of the day workout. I love a noon workout because then you got your morning, then you go to the gym, you work out, you got that, you got the exercise, you get totally breathless. You get like that wonderful feeling of, I'm physically exhausted. It resets everything. You take a shower, you sit back down, and then you work the afternoon, and it's like restarting your day. So I love noon workouts. I tolerate 8 a.m. workouts, and I will not work out before 8 a.m. 7:30 would be like the earliest that I would ever dream about doing a class or something like that. And I don't work out after work because then that interferes with my family time and my social time. And there's like that doesn't work. So I can't do after work. So I am a late riser. But also one other point on that, Eric, is that some of my creativity and my life functions a little bit later. So in order to get up that early, you'd have to go to bed early because sleep is important. So whichever camp you're in, you got to get your sleep, your 7 hours, your 8 hours. So you can't just be both. You have to pick one or the other in order to really get your sleep too. And so for me, there's some social stuff and some evening stuff, and some of my creativity happens later, just naturally. So I would rather stay up till 10, 11, and then get up at 6:37, rather than the opposite. But I don't know. What do you think?
No. No. So I'm up at 5:30, 6 o'clock. I do the whole breakfast thing. I'm at my desk at 7. The workout happens at 3 because I am brain dead by the afternoon,
Okay.
and so I go do something that doesn't require a lot of thought. That energizes me enough to do something else in the afternoon, and then I am also an early to bed person. So to me,
Right.
a late night is 9:30. So I'm usually in bed at 9.
Wow. Yeah.
And so again, using the CPAP analogy, my CPAP usually tells me that I'm sleeping 8 hours, 9 hours a night.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm 54. I'm middle aged. This is what happens to you folks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
This is it. I'm in my 40s, so I'm not quite there yet. But at the same time, like, man, I don't know, Eric. I feel like you got kids. Your kids do not go to. Are they doing that thing where they're like sitting on the couch and they're like, oh, Dad's going to bed, and then they're still up doing their thing?
They stay up a little bit after us, but I hear them thumping around and goofing off, and they're usually in bed by 9:30. So it's not that they're going to bed really late. I have no idea if they're awake in their room, reading or something.
Yeah.
But they are out of the living room usually by 9:30 or so.
Got it. And is it that way on the weekends too for you guys?
Yeah, pretty much. Because we're up and about doing stuff. But
Yeah.
we usually sleep in on weekends, unless I'm teaching scuba, in which case I'm up at 5:30 again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, see, now 5:30 is ridiculous, Eric. No way. There is nothing about 5:30 that I want any part of, dude.
Oh,
6:30 at the absolute earliest, only if I have to get to an 8 o'clock class. And there's like, oh man, no way.
Well, then you'll love this. You'll absolutely love this. My biggest and best client likes to have me teach classes at 6 a.m. because they're based in Iowa. So that's 8 a.m. for the
8 a.m. their time.
That's 8 a.m. their time. And then they have a lot of folks who are East Coast or Europe. So 8 a.m. is a good time. 8 a.m. Central Time is a good time for them to start. So I'm up at 4:30 to work.
Ooh. Well,
That's painful.
That means you're going to bed at 7:30 on those nights.
That's painful.
just
That means a coffee IV for me.
Yeah. Do what you got to do for the clients, man. I like it, man. I respect it, Eric, but hell no, I will not go that early in the morning. Like, nope, not if I can help it.
You know what?
Now, I will say if I had a client and it was a work thing that needed me up that early, you bet your keister that I would figure it out. But naturally, no way. In my regular life, no way.
I do it because I really like and respect this client. I'm happy to do it for them. If there wasn't so much what the Chinese call guanxi, if there wasn't so much good feelings between us, I might push back a little bit. But I'm happy to do it.
Got it. There you go. Well then, next, let's talk about the next one, which is we talked about meditating. So I'm not a big meditator. Let me take first on this one. Meditation is not my thing. I tried it. Let me just say, first off, before I say that I'm not, I did try it. I took a 10-day meditation thing. What's that, man? There was an app that came out that gives you like a 10-day intro or something. And so I meditated for 10 days. Headspace. Exactly. I tried Headspace. I did the 10-day meditation. I got up every morning and I sat there and I meditated. And by the 6th or 7th day, what happened is I fell asleep meditating. And what meditating taught me is that meditation is excellent for me going back to sleep. So I will tell you right now that at 4 a.m. when I wake up and I can't go back to sleep because you use the bathroom or something, and you go back to bed and you're trying to go to sleep and you can't go to sleep, I meditate and it works like a charm. I am out. It is like a superpower. If I meditate, I go to sleep. And that's not to say I understand the benefits of having nothing going on in your, like, quieting your mind. I think that's super important. But to me, my creativity and my flow is letting my brain just go with all of the thoughts that I'm having. And so I don't meditate during my conscious day when I'm at the regular times. I don't dig it. It's not for me. It's not my thing. And I know it's not for everybody. Maybe you listening aren't a meditator either, but I tried it. It's not my bag. Like it's great for going to sleep. What do you got?
I think you're missing out. I use Headspace. I've been kind of in and out, on and off with the whole meditation thing, and it took some experimenting. I actually was going to a live person, where we were doing this thing over Zoom, and she was walking me through this thing, and she had tapes and CDs and things like that, like the practice was like half an hour long. That was too much. But I've been I've been experimenting with Headspace, and I found this one where it's just simply this very nice lady guiding you through taking 10 deep breaths, clearing your mind and taking 10 deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. The whole thing takes 5 minutes. I've got the way my office is set up is I can dim all the lights and do all this cool stuff in here. And I've got a really nice rocking chair behind me. So I come down to the office after breakfast. I'm ready to go. I dim the lights. I do the 10 breaths. 5 minutes. I'm done. I'm centered. I'm ready to go to work. So for me, the trick is it can't be too long. So like a half-hour practice is just too much.
Okay.
But I would be interested someday in like going to a meditation retreat and learning how the yogis do it. That's not on the list. It's not on my calendar. It's not on the list.
If it ain't on his calendar, it ain't getting done. You heard that.
It's not going to get done. But someday maybe, and if it's important enough, it'll get on the calendar. But in the meantime, I find Headspace to be useful. It's not very expensive, and there's so many options. Many options in terms of guides, male, female, young and old, very short meditations, like just do 5 breaths, it takes 2.5 minutes all the way through to a week-long thing you can do. So I like it. I dig it. It helps me sort of get organized. And my big thing, as you've probably heard, my big thing these days is empathy and management. And one of the things that I teach in the empathy module is mindfulness and meditation. So I better practice what I preach.
This is true. Eric, no way, man. It's not, here's the thing that now Headspace, the one thing that I think I discovered with Headspace, and you're a regular user, so you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think I remember there were meditations you could do while you were washing the dishes or while you were, doing chores around the house or something like that. Is that true? Am I misremembering that?
I don't know. There probably is. There's a lot to it I haven't seen.
Okay. So the thing that I'll say is clearing your mind or letting your mind just roam and wander. One of the things that was really helpful when I learned meditation was the concept of a thought coming in and then you letting it go and going back to center and where you were. And one of the things that happens for me is that some of my most creative thoughts, you ever been in the shower and you have all these great ideas in the shower, right? It's because your mind is just wandering. It's just doing its thing. That's almost like it's similar to meditation, but it's not. In that in meditation, you're trying to know thoughts, trying to quiet your mind. Whereas for me, I like to let it roam, let it play, let it whatever. So the only time I want it to quiet is 4 a.m. when I'm trying to get back to sleep. So man, meditation is just a helpful sleep tool for me. I am not a meditator. Not my thing.
I respect your decision, but I feel bad for you. I think you're missing out.
I will take your pity and I will give it right back to you for these things.
Fine. Moving on.
Funny.
Where are we at?
All right. Last one. Amazon Subscribe and Save. Oh my God, this is my love. Talk to me. What are your thoughts?
Freaking hate it. Oh my God. So
what are you talking about?
Okay, you got me on this whole subscribe and save, right? Like
Okay.
I talked to you or I listened to one of your episodes and I'm like, oh, subscribe and save. It'll save you a bunch of time. Cool. So I put the spa chemicals on subscribe and save, the vitamins, some other household stuff I put on subscribe and save. And pretty soon I wound up with this stuff stacked around the house. The timing was all off. So I've got cleaning products that are 6 months old that I haven't gotten to yet. Because the subscribe and save timing was wrong. So I find that I'm intelligent enough to order my own stuff when I need it, and Amazon is fast enough to get it to me when it needs to be there. So when the Spa Shock needs to be refilled, I just order it when I need it. It's very limited. It's not that I don't use it, but I don't use it for everything because my perception is that you are like a devotee of this stuff and like do it for everything. So let's hear your side.
Eric, I want you to subscribe and save everything that you can. Everything that is practical. So let me qualify that statement by saying,
hey, Brian.
Yeah.
No.
I'm telling you, if you're listening, I want you to try it if you haven't tried it already, because I did not understand the magic of subscribe and save. So by the way, let's explain if you're listening and you don't know what this is. Subscribe and save is a program in Amazon where you can go on Amazon and you can subscribe to a product. And what that means is the product you can put it on whatever interval you want and the product will show up at that interval. So perfect example of this would be vitamins. I take my vitamin one a day. Every day, there are 120 pills in that bottle, which is exactly 4 months. So I know that about 2 or 3 weeks before the 4-month mark, I'm going to be ready for another one of those pill boxes, another one of those containers of vitamins. So I have it on a subscription where it shows up every 4 months so that it's ready to go and I never have to think about it. I don't have to reorder it. So the two reasons that I don't want you to listen to Eric and I want you to try subscribe and save is because you don't have to think about it. And the amount of stuff that you have to think about all the time is astronomical. So if you can subscribe to things that are very regular, I don't subscribe to everything. Like I don't subscribe to toothpaste because I haven't been able to figure out that interval. I don't subscribe to deodorant because I don't know the interval. I don't subscribe to some of the food things, but let me tell you the things that I do subscribe to that have been a game changer. Every single one of the pet things. We have a cat. And every one of the pet products is on a subscription because it's used the same interval like clockwork. They eat the same amount of food, the same amount of waste, the same amount of litter, change the litter, same. So it's to the point, like that's one. Or another one would be batteries for your smoke detectors in your house. Well, I hope you know that you should change those every 6 months or a year or whatever the interval is for your smoke detectors. So what I love about this is if you subscribe to it, then when the batteries show up, you don't even have to think about it. You don't have to remember that a year ago I changed it and it needs to be August. You don't put it on your calendar like Eric probably does.
Absolutely. Are you kidding? That's absolutely on the calendar.
No, I don't even want it to be a calendar thing. I want it to show up at my door and I'm like, oh, that's right. It's been a year already. Okay, let me change these batteries. And they're right there ready for you to change the batteries. So no, Eric, I think you should subscribe to the things that you can that are regular so that you don't have to think about it either. It just shows up when you need it. It is magic. And you get 5 to 15% off. If you subscribe to as much as I do, you get 15% off all this stuff. So you save money and you don't have to think about it. What's not to love? Come on, Eric.
I'll tell you what's not to love. Clutter. I hate clutter. I hate having too much stuff around the house. Every month, like clockwork, I take a trunk load of stuff to Goodwill because we go through the house and clean up all the clutter and we give it away to somebody who needs it. Okay.
Yeah.
So subscribe and save. All right. I did Mrs. Murphy's cleaning products, right? It was a 3-pack.
Yeah.
I said, great,
Yeah.
send that to me every 3 months. Guess how many Mrs. Murphy's bottles I have now? Like 12 hanging around the house. They're cluttering up my...
So what? You don't clean the house? What? Why aren't you using
Hey,
these
shut
things?
up. So we have...
Hold on, wait. Eric, hold on. Now, let me just share for you, if you haven't done subscribe and save, the other thing you should know is that Amazon sends you an email a week and a half ahead with an interval that says these are the subscriptions coming up, and if you want to change them, you can. So I don't want you to think that if you subscribe that you are forced to take the product because you said you would a year ago or whatever it was. No, it's in the app. You can easily adjust. I don't need it yet. So if something does start stacking up, like Eric says, you can easily punt it, skip it, change the interval, and it notifies you ahead of time. So you're not like, I don't want you to think that you're forced, which is why I still think you should try it. But go ahead, Eric. What were you saying?
I have vitamins in my downstairs bathroom on the shelf. I have vitamins lined up that's going to last us probably 3 months because subscribe and save keeps sending it. They won't stop. So I hate clutter. If it was me, we wouldn't go to Costco. I mean, Costco is really important, for things like toilet paper and paper towel and dishwasher detergent and things like that. But it means that there's a shelf in my garage dedicated to the big box and all that stuff. And all this stuff is just hanging around because you have to buy it in bulk. You have to buy it in quantity. I just wish there was a way to get just the roll of paper towel you need when you need it without having to buy 11 of its friends.
Totally tracking with you on that. And I'll just say that if you want to subscribe to a smaller set of paper towels, you certainly could. And then you just would have to figure out the interval over time. So the other thing I'll say is...
No, wait a minute. Didn't you just say you don't have to think about it? You did. You said you don't have to think about it. And now you're telling me I have to think.
If you notice that you're starting to build up a backstock of these things like you're talking about, then you can look at, okay, when was the last time I ordered? And you can actually figure out, okay, what my interval was wrong. So one example of thing that I did subscribe and save wrong was the cat food. And so the cat food came in and it was like a 5-pound bag or something. And I said, all right, let's order it. And then I ended up, I think it was like a month or something, and the cat didn't eat 5 pounds. This is example numbers. And then they discontinued that quantity. And so I had to change it to a 10-pound bag, and I didn't change the interval. So I ended up with 3 10-pound bags of cat food. And by the way, I have a very, very small cat. So that amount of food is like a long, long interval of food. So I got that one wrong. However, when you get it, you adjust it. So there is a tweak that can happen if you need to over time. If you start ending up with 10 things of Mrs. Murphy's like Eric does, you either need to clean your house more, I'm just saying, or you should change the interval, bump it out a little bit, because now you only need it every 4 months or 5 months or whatever that is. So
basically, Brian, I think you've just made my point. Thank you.
Fair enough. Well, listen, I think that it is a game changer, and you should totally try subscription stuff. If you're a cat person or a pet person, it's not just Amazon. Chewy has this now. Walmart has the ability to subscribe to things. So that beauty of subscription is you don't even have to think about it. It will just show up for you. And for me, that little amount of time that you save not having to think about it, pull out your phone and order your spa chemicals like Eric does, I think that's a win. So I think you should do it. But at the same time, I do agree that it's not for everything, because none of our food is subscribe and save. It is for supplies, not food, because the food thing is there's not a good interval for that.
Yeah, I would eat way too much if food was on subscribe and save. If they put M&Ms on subscribe and save,
I was just going to say, right, if it was whatever your guilty pleasure is, and so it starts showing up every week, and I look at my wife and I'm like, well, there's another one coming, so I better eat this one. And then I just keep eating all these bad things for you because it's Amazon's fault, right? Like,
yeah, I'm guiltless. I'm guiltless.
Oh, that's fine.
All right. Well,
Eric, I appreciate it for you listening. Please, I want to know what you think, because I am totally on a different page from Eric about this stuff. And so I'm curious where you land on this spectrum of things, because man, I just strongly disagree with his approach. So, and for the record, I just want to say that I feel like in our country today, if you strongly disagree, you have to be like enemies or something. And I just want to clarify that I strongly disagree with Eric, and I still love this guy. Like, man, he's a great dude. He gets all the stuff done. So like, we're allowed to disagree, and that's cool too. So you're allowed to disagree with us. So come disagree with us and tell us what you think.
Yes. And in order to disagree on a subscribe and save basis, please subscribe to both of our shows. So you can do that in an Apple podcast. You can subscribe to the shows, and that way you get the goodness from both of us. Brian, thank you so much. This has been hilarious, and I hope that our listeners find it equally interesting and fun and thought-provoking.
Right back at you, Eric. Thanks for a spirited discussion, and thanks for having different thoughts. Because I will say that having a different approach or different opinions only helps me evolve in my thoughts, or it's helpful when you have a thought and somebody pokes holes in it, and you're able to go back and say, nope, I think this even more now, or it might change your mind. And God, who would have thought? So I love that we don't have the same perspective on this, and it only sets me in my ways even more on these things. So I appreciate you for that. Thanks, Eric.
Yep. Thank you. And we'll see you all on the next one. Bye-bye.
Productivity. Gladiator.